Queen Anne, the last Stuart monarch of England, reigned from 1702 until her death in 1714. Her reign was marked by significant political, military, and constitutional changes that played an important role in shaping the future of Britain. Anne's reign saw the union of England and Scotland into Great Britain in 1707, the culmination of the War of Spanish Succession, and important developments in British domestic and foreign policy. Despite her health struggles and the absence of a direct heir, Anne's reign left a lasting legacy in the development of parliamentary power, the structure of the British state, and the role of the monarchy in British society. Anne was born on February 6, 1665, in St. James's Palace, London, as the second daughter of James II and his second wife, Mary of Modena. As a child, Anne's life was shaped by the political and religious turbulence surrounding her father's reign. James II, a Catholic monarch, was opposed by the Protestant majority, and his policies alienated much of the English aristocracy and the Church of England. His attempts to promote Catholicism led to the Glorious Revolution of 1688, which resulted in his abdication and the ascension of his Protestant daughter, Mary, and her husband, William, to the throne. Anne's early years were marked by a lack of stability. After the Glorious Revolution, she was caught between two competing loyalties: her Catholic heritage through her father, James II, and her Protestant connection to her sister Mary, who had taken the throne with William. The political rifts caused by the Glorious Revolution would remain a defining feature of Anne's reign. In 1683, Anne married Prince George of Denmark, a marriage that brought her emotional support, but was largely politically insignificant. Despite this, the union was a relatively happy one, although Anne experienced great personal tragedy, including the loss of several children during infancy and early childhood. This tragedy contributed to the emotional toll on Anne and further complicated the question of succession to the throne. Anne's early years in the royal family were marked by personal and political struggles. Although she was close to her sister Mary, their relationship was overshadowed by political tensions, with Anne often caught between the court factions supporting William and those who sought to maintain the Stuart Catholic legacy. Anne's eventual ascension to the throne in 1702 was the culmination of a complicated and often tragic royal history. Anne became Queen of England, Scotland, and Ireland following the death of her brother-in-law, William, in 1702. William's death left no direct heirs, and as the next Protestant in line after William's death, Anne was the obvious successor. Anne's accession was welcomed by many in England, particularly because she was seen as a native-born Protestant monarch who could restore some measure of stability after the tumultuous reigns of her father and brother-in-law. Anne's coronation was celebrated with the expectation that she would be able to heal the divisions within the country and assert her authority as queen. However, her reign was immediately confronted by a number of challenges. First, she was burdened by her deteriorating health. Anne had suffered from numerous illnesses throughout her life, and her poor health would continue to plague her during her reign, limiting her ability to actively participate in political and military affairs. Her struggles with weight, gout, and frequent pain made her a monarch who relied heavily on her advisors and her ministers. Additionally, Anne's reign began during a time of significant political division in England. The Whigs, who supported the Protestant succession and reform, and the Tories, who were more conservative and supportive of the monarchy's traditional power, were deeply divided. Anne's position was further complicated by the ongoing European conflict known as the War of Spanish Succession, in which Britain was embroiled. One of the most significant events of Anne's reign was Britain's involvement in the War of Spanish Succession, 1701 to 1714. The war began when Charles II of Spain died without an heir, and European powers scrambled to determine who should inherit the Spanish throne. Charles's will named Philip of Anjou, the grandson of King Louis XIV of France, as his successor. This caused alarm in Europe, as a union between France and Spain under the Bourbon family would significantly alter the balance of power in Europe and threaten Britain's security. The British government, led by Anne's ministers, saw the rise of a Franco-Spanish superpower as a direct threat to British interests. Queen Anne's government, primarily led by the Whig and Tory factions, aligned with other European powers, such as the Dutch Republic and Austria, to form a grand alliance against France and Spain. The war, which lasted for over a decade, was fought on multiple fronts, including Spain, the Netherlands, and Germany. Anne's reign saw Britain involved in several significant battles during the war, including the Battle of Blenheim in 1704, one of the most decisive victories for the British and their allies. Under the command of the Duke of Marlborough, the British army achieved a stunning victory over the French and Bavarians, solidifying Britain's role as a dominant European power. The War of Spanish Succession ended in 1714 with the signing of the Treaty of Utrecht, which brought peace to Europe. The treaty had significant implications for Britain. France was forced to cede territories to Britain, including Gibraltar, which would become a crucial naval base and a key point of British power in the Mediterranean. The Treaty of Utrecht marked the height of Britain's imperial expansion, and the country emerged from the war as one of the most powerful nations in Europe. While the war brought military success to Britain, it also strained Anne's reign. The war's cost and the resulting political divisions caused tensions within her government, with Tories and Whigs differing on strategy and the conduct of the war. The war was also controversial, as it was seen by many as an expensive and unnecessary conflict. Anne's health continued to deteriorate during the war, and by the time the peace was achieved in 1714, she was ailing and incapable of effectively managing the political and military complexities of the time. Another landmark event of Anne's reign was the Act of Union of 1707, which unified the kingdoms of England and Scotland into the Kingdom of Great Britain. The union was a response to ongoing political and economic challenges in both countries. Scotland, which had suffered from economic hardship and political instability, was seeking greater stability and trade access through a union with England. Meanwhile, England sought to ensure that Scotland would not remain a potential ally of Britain's enemies, particularly France. The Act of Union was highly contentious, particularly in Scotland, where there was significant opposition to the idea of being governed by an English-dominated parliament. The union was also controversial in England, as many feared that the integration of Scotland would weaken England's influence and resources. However, the union was ultimately achieved, and in 1707, the Kingdom of Great Britain was officially created, with a single parliament based in Westminster. The Act of Union had long-term consequences for both England and Scotland. It solidified the union between the two nations, but it also led to significant political and economic changes. Over time, Scotland's influence in British politics grew, though tensions between the two countries persisted, especially in the years following the union. Anne's reign was marked by declining health, which limited her ability to effectively govern. By the time of her death in 1714, Anne had suffered a series of miscarriages, and she had not produced a surviving heir to the throne. This left the succession in question, and the issue of her successor became a crucial concern for the future of Britain. Anne's death marked the end of the Stuart dynasty, and the throne passed to the House of Hanover, with George I becoming the first British monarch from the Hanoverian line. Queen Anne's legacy is complex and multifaceted. Her reign was marked by significant military, political, and constitutional developments, but she also faced challenges related to her health, her lack of a direct heir, and her ability to navigate the complex political divisions in England. Anne's reign brought England through a period of major upheaval and transformation, and her legacy as the last Stuart monarch is both a reflection of the end of an era and the emergence of new political and dynastic realities. The union of England and Scotland, the military successes in the War of Spanish Succession, and the political developments of her reign were significant achievements. However, Anne's inability to secure a Protestant heir and her reliance on her ministers left Britain vulnerable to political instability in the years after her death. The transition to the Hanoverian dynasty marked the end of the Stuart line and the beginning of a new chapter in British history.